I would say that it was mostly just kind of, there wasn't really like a tech community. There were just like people bored at their jobs on listservs.
When the Philly tech community really started, if you want to go back to 1986 with the BBS scene, there were like 100 of us total, maybe, meeting in various tech groups in Philadelphia. Now you go to a single PAMA event, and it's 75 people every time. You go to bar camp, 400 people.
I wasn't in love with Philadelphia yet, and so it was very easy for me to look to any other city in the country, in the world, and spot even a small cluster of technology people and go, why is it easier to find people there than it is in my own backyard?
I think the change that I've seen is from when I first moved here 4 years ago to where we are now, is that I felt like there were a lot of siloed communities. And I really feel like over the past several years, there's been more of a kind of integration.
Ignite Philly 1 happened, which of course is kind of the lightning talks, usually tech-centered, at Johnny Brenda's.
The format of Ignite is 5-minute lightning talks, 20 slides, 15 seconds, auto-rotating. So it's super fast, the pace is not in your control.
Ignite Philly 1 was happening, and I remember thinking to myself, all right, I'll just get out of work and I'll, in Old City, and walk on up to Fishtown, which is, a 20-minute walk. And I'll be a little late, but I'll get there. Like, it's not gonna be a big deal. It's just a bunch of nerds talking for 15 minutes. It's not gonna be crowded.
We started Ignite Philly because we wanted to celebrate and bring together people who are doing interesting things.
Jeff and his team didn't just curate in tech talks. It was across the spectrum of arts and culture and creative and civic. It was all over the place.
I didn't think anything of it, and I walked there, and I remember tripping over bicycles. There's just bikes everywhere. I'm like, what? There must be a concert going on tonight too.
As far as I know, Philadelphia was one of the first Ignites outside of the origin one. There was a handful that had happened around the country, but it wasn't the kind of phenomenon that it is now. From what I know, they had done the previous Ignites in sort of in a theater kind of setting. Everybody's sitting down, there's a stage. Jeff and his punk rock background said, let's go to Johnny Brenda's. This awesome punk rock venue. It'll be super crowded, everybody will be shoulder to shoulder drinking beer, but the energy will be high. And I think that was the Philadelphia flavor that Ignite needed to be successful here.
We took our own spin on it. It's much more like maybe much more like a punk rock show, is what the Technically Philly guys reported, and I agreed with them. It was sweaty and fun and laid back. Some other people, it's more like a TEDx.
And then I go to get in, I'm like, I'm here for Ignite Philly, and the doorman was like, nope, sold out. And I remember going, what? It's like, yeah, like it was a rock concert, and I couldn't get in. And I've been to rock concerts where I got there late at Johnny Brenda's, so the Philly tech community could sell out Johnny Brenda's more than Indie Band X.
And I know Technically Philly, those guys were there, or at least one or two of them were in, and one of them couldn't even get in because it was like, standing room only, one person in. It was like line out the door. It was really exciting.
And I remember leaving that first Ignite where I gave a talk. Did I talk at the first one? I'm pretty sure I talked at the first one. And I remember calling my dad. We're walking from Johnny Brenda's to some other bar in Northern Liberty. I think we were going to North 3rd or something like that. And I call my dad, and it's late. And he goes, is everything all right? And I go, yeah, everything's great, actually. And he goes, okay. And I go, I don't know why I decided to call you. I had to tell somebody that we just did this event in Philadelphia. It's called Ignite, and I'll tell you what it is later, but I think what just happened was important. He's like, are you sure you're okay?
And that's when I thought there's a need, this is a powder keg of a bunch of people just wanting anything to show the community that they kind of thought existed.
And they realized that, oh, there's something going on here, is what they told us. And I felt that too. It was just like this big celebration of what we had, what we had as a community,
Brian James Kirk was freelance writing for Celebrity. He had a technology column on Celebrity. and wrote what I think was the first not snarky blog post on Celebrity ever. And he wrote this review of Ignite and said something to the effect of, you know, the geeks are more punk rock than the punk rockers at Ignite Philadelphia. And then him and Sean Blanda and Chris Wink, who were recent Temple Journalism School graduates that were struggling to find jobs, decided to create jobs for themselves, found Technically Philly, because Ignite showed them that there was a community to cover.
We started Technically Philly February 9th, 2009, and it became very clear in the first 2 months that there was a need. You know, we thought we would struggle to get news. You know, we're like, if we're lucky, we'll get 1 to 2 posts a day. People came out of the woodwork and said, "Oh, I'm so glad you exist now. I have this project, I have this thing, I have this event, I have all these things that were culminating in this tech community."
We also, you know, because we had that idea of starting to charge $5 for the tickets. The thing I love about that is we did it because we felt bad that people would get there and stand in line and not be able to get in. But then we realized, like, oh, with that money, we can donate that to something. We decided we would just take all that money and donate it back out to a previous speaker. And that was a really cool moment when we had that epiphany, that everybody would now be just not only contributing, that everybody who attended, their $5 was coming together into a sum of $1,000 approximately, and going back out to the community. And no strings attached micro grant.
Ignite Philly helped lead to the formation of Bar Camp. Shortly before Ignite Philly, I went to my first bar camp in Orlando, Florida, and the Bar Camp Philly co-founder, Roz Duffy, went to a bar camp in New York City. And we met each other shortly after that, and nobody had ever done a bar camp in Philadelphia, so we thought, we have to bring this here. I mean, this will be a really great catalyst to bring lots of different creative professionals together.
I remember JP came to me after going to Bar Camp Orlando, which is a badass bar camp. Like, they just do an awesome job there. And he said, I went to Bar Camp Orlando. It was amazing. Why don't we have one of these in Philadelphia? And I said, because you haven't thrown it yet. And he was like, oh shit, I'm on the hook now, aren't I?
Bar Camp is one of the original unconferences. The idea started in 2003 with Tim O'Reilly, who founded O'Reilly Publishing, except it was called Foo Camp. It was a conference in Seattle, and it was by invite only. So Tim invited a few people to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about for the audience.
A bunch of programmers kind of riled at the idea that something would be invitation only. It's kind of antithetical to a lot of what the community stands for.
Then in 2005, in California, some people took the other half of Foo Bar and made Bar Camp. With no schedule, people would come talk about whatever they wanted, but anybody was invited. You didn't need a special invitation, anybody could come.
Everybody who wants to come comes, and they show up the day of, and they get their coffee, and they decide what they want to talk about that day. And you don't have to do a presentation, but if you want to do a presentation, whether you've been preparing it for 3 months or whether you just decided on the spur of the moment, then you write it on a card and you pin it to the board. And as the board fills, the day's schedule becomes apparent. The talks range. They range. There was one year we had somebody who was an art student who just made a crafting summit. And so she overtook one of the classrooms that we had and just filled it with craft supplies, and people went for an hour and made little business cards or whatever they wanted to do. We had a lawyer last year who was giving just a primer on what you need to know for a small business. Sometimes you go into the room and it's just like, okay, so I had this idea, help me think about it. We had Microsoft come one year and they did a session entitled Microsoft Help Us Suck Less.
If you show people how easy it is to be empowered to do something on your own, they'll run with the ball. I mean, after Bar Camp, we had a lot of other camps that spawned up in the city, like Higher Ed Camp and Ed Camp, which is like elementary school teachers, K through 12. And those people, a lot of them had come to Bar Camp originally and then walked away and thought, oh, well, heck, we can do this for like the things that we're interested in. And they made their own camp in a similar format, and they've gone on to be very successful. So the thing I've learned, and also the thing I'm most proud of, is that people who come are inspired and empowered, and I think that they learn that they can do these things, and make these events and conferences where they can bring their friends and like-minded people together to exchange ideas and help build out their own community.
It's such a fantastic idea. It's such a fantastic model that feeds off of exactly what you are as a community and what you have as a community. And I'm so big on empowerment for all of the individuals in any landscape. And the fact that there is this model, this thing that is so well attended that everybody comes to and is this bright spot in the fall for this entire city and this community, that people come to knowing that it's only going to be as good and as diverse and as participatory as they are. They come with ownership. And where else do you have an event where everybody arrives with ownership?
I think for me that the tech community really entrenched itself in the bar camp events. That's when I was able to identify wow, there's a serious mass of people starting to come together in this very organic, very real human way and building relationships around technology and doing, learning together and sharing together. That's bar camp for me. That's when it started. Yeah.
Bar Camp Philadelphia this year had 300-400 people there on a Saturday, their day off, voluntarily, to talk about their passion. It's their career, but it's also their passion. And when was the last time you can think of in American history where people's career really became their passion? Where they take a Saturday away from their family, away from their friends, away from doing something supposedly recreational and did something for their career. Why? Because it is recreational. It's part of who you are. It's part of your passion. It really comes through in that we do this because we love this.
So you need to go the fuck home.